announced that they've been hiding all of this information since before 45, but that was the first one where they called it a balloon, a weather balloon, and it was actually space people had come to Roswell. And so that's all been camouflaged and hidden and from the public legally, not well as far as, being accessible that everybody's been told this is the truth. They haven't been told the truth for all these years. And that's going to be exposed. And when that happens, that's when there's going to be a major change on our government, major change on the planet, of our moving into this higher consciousness where we will have unconditional love on planet Earth. And we have ETs out there. Ashtar Command is one of them. I had a very paranormal experience with that. And they're there waiting to help us. And as soon as it's safe to land and people are more open and receptive to embrace that communication and exchange, they're ready to change the pollution, promote the free power, what do they call it? Perpetual motion gives power without cost. You don't have to pay for electricity. You'll have free energy. Free energy will be available, and we'll be having cars that won't be using gas. All these different technical things are going to clean up the oceans.
But how are you going to get the government and the greedy corporations to do that? I mean, you look at Tesla. I mean, he wanted to, power, your home with free energy. He felt it shouldn't be charged, and then you had the corporate, and then the government felt totally different, and they did everything after that to make him bankrupt and make him look like a nutcase. I mean, and it was bad for him. I mean, he lost everything, and he died very unhappy. And
they actually killed him.
Yeah,
and they've done that to more than just Tesla. It's very, very sad that the people in power don't want to give up their power. That is changing right now behind the scenes. I happen to be in touch with spiritual messages about that kind of thing. Behind closed doors, there are people have changed laws so that the powers that have been actually running the forces behind the scenes who are being actually arrested at this time. Their money has been drained out of their bank accounts. They don't have the money for the chemtrails and so forth as they used to. They're actually being depleted in various ways, so they are losing their power in all the different parts of our lives. And so there's a law when it is declared Nasera that will literally restore the government back to what we would call the United States of America rather than where we've moved into it under the influence.
Marilyn, that's what's really scary. I had a guest on the other night. Besides producing movies and making movies, he worked for the DOA or DOD for quite a few years and as an analyst and an agent. And what he told me, it was really, really scary. I mean, virtually like every email you send to somebody, it's being copied. They're storing it. Every phone call, if you make a phone call and you use a keyword, your phone conversation is recorded. They monitor.
Yes, I've known this for several years.
Yeah, they monitor. They monitor when you go into like a big department store with your credit card with your chip on it. They monitor it. And it's not just the government, because the government's tied into big business. And that's what he was telling me. And that's why after 10 or 11 years of doing it, he just one day said, hey, I want to do acting. I don't want to do this anymore. And he was pretty high up in what he was doing. And he said that our freedoms are going. And he said the next step is we're going to be chipped. And that's going to happen very, very shortly.
Well, I choose to believe in the positive, that the light always will overshine the darkness. If you stay in the darkness, you're going to attract it. If you stay in the possibilities of a better life, you're going to attract that. So I choose, those things are happening, and I think people need to be aware of them. But I choose to focus on the good because I want the good. I want to be that magnet that attracts good. And there's going to be a change coming where darkness will not have the power. It will actually be dispelled and changed so that that's exactly what's going on. Where the upheavals are going on right now is our government is not as always published to the actual public, but a lot of the associations where the government was part of these dark organizations that was part of, Trump's been pulling us out of those organizations, and including he hasn't pulled us out of the UN yet, but there's a lot of organizations that the government has been involved with that has actually promoted what you just talked about. And it's been worldwide, not just the United States.
Oh, no, so, it's scary, too. It is. I mean,
it's scary if you allow it to be. You have a choice for your emotions. And today, I don't see anything as good or bad. I see that it is just going through change. I know that if you're involved with the Bible, I don't like to preach the Bible, but there's a lot of good wisdom in it. Romans 28:8, all things work for good in those that love God and are in his path. So the more we have higher consciousness, it will obliterate that darkness.
I don't know.
That's what we're all about, is coming into that higher consciousness, and it will not be an issue.
Yeah, but it's scary. Again, I've talked to people too that say they've been abducted by grays, for example, and
that can't happen anymore.
That can't happen. He said it's been a couple years since he was abducted, but
it did happen at one time. The government allowed it.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah, I know.
And his uncle was involved with Howard Hughes and a couple Rockefeller, and they were actually into that type of thing. I mean, where they were trying to communicate with aliens, and they would go to a certain place, to supposedly wait for UFOs.
Well, computers are because of the government was able to communicate with those ETs, and they gave us a lot of technology that has been put into our system of life, and things that they gave as far as information is now in computers, or we wouldn't have had computers. So some of it can be used for good, but the problem is when you use it against people. And so the dark is always using it against people to keep them in fear, so then they're a good victim, and you say, well, you save us. Well, we can only save ourselves by turning to the light, and that's where we obliterate the darkness. So as we change our consciousness, we first talked about my book, Finding Reality Beyond Fear. I have a diagram that I originated of going up the stairs of consciousness into unconditional love. And as we raise the energy within us by releasing anything negative, then you can replace it with God's love and grace. And at one point, I actually felt total grace inside from having released so much of the negative energy inside of me. And today, I do feel I'm living in grace. So we don't have to buy into it unless we want to stay a victim to that situation. We have a choice. Life is about choice. The old adage of the old cartoon with Pinocchio. On his shoulder was the little angel, and the little devil was on the other shoulder, and he said, let your conscience be your guide. And you can choose to love in the universe and live in that, or you can choose to stay in fear, and that's what the devil's about. It's a lack of love, which keeps us fearful, but that's not real. Real is love, and that's all there is. But most people have been so misinformed about what the energy. See, life's all about energy, and that's what Tesla said. If you want to know what life's about, is to look at energy, vibration, and there was another part of it, vibration and whatever. But anyway, that's what Tesla was saying. And that's what Einstein was saying, too, is everything in spirit that manifests on earth as matter. So it's a matter of choosing the truth and finding out what is the truth and letting that be your guide. So if it feels good, that's the way to go. If if you feel scared, obviously that's not the way you want to go. I like to feel good today, so I meditate. I put myself in a good conscious place in the truth and the love of God, and the rest is just not an issue anymore. It obliterates it.
Yeah, now I have a Tim over in Oregon is asking, if everybody thought positive and put out positive vibes, we wouldn't have what's going on today.
Exactly. That's what we're all learning to do.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
And we all have it from our own perspective. So what works for you might not work for me. What's cute for me might be poison for you.
Yeah.
To say somebody is right or wrong isn't always the answer. You have to do it for yourself. The only person you can change is yourself. So in my case, when I chose to leave that domestic violent marriage, some people stay, and of course there's a lot of devastation that comes from that. But I chose to get out of it. So people have choices. I also discovered mental illness is a choice. I was in meditation one day, and the silent voice came in and said, do you want to leave your paranoid schizophrenia behind? Do you want to leave your bipolar behind like your mother could not leave her paranoid schizophrenia prison up in her mind? And I said, yes. And the opportunities appeared for me to be able to move out of mental illness and understand it.
Yeah, but some people don't realize that they're mentally ill.
They don't until their life becomes so drastic that they have to make a choice. And it's sad that people are not we're not taught the truth in our society. That's a big part of it. We're not taught the truth. Medicine comes in and gives us this myth that if you take a drug, we'll fix you. But we have to fix ourselves. We can't look to somebody or something outside of ourselves. The peace and healthiness comes from within. And so when you understand that we have to change ourselves and it's possible, that's not what's preached today. So we have to learn the truth where we find it. And fortunately, through my experiences, I feel that I have a lot of answers that have in the past been not revealed.
Yeah. That's, medication, like we're talking about, I think sometimes medication can actually cause more problems than, love. Because I think sometimes when people are on heavy medication, their whole personality changes. They change. And I actually seen people who have been on medication where they actually were nonviolent when they were on the medication. And when they got on the medication, when they got on the medication, they got kind of more violent because they didn't realize they were getting violent. Medication doesn't work 9 out of 10 times. They just do that because they want to make a person basically a zombie.
Well, they want to make you a zombie so you can't think for yourself, and the pharmaceutical companies pocket the money that they profit from it. A real misunderstood ailment is ADHD. And when I've been called a research journalist. And so when I was doing some research on that, it turns out that the company had developed Ritalin, but they didn't have a market for it. So a psychiatrist agreed to call it a disease or a medical problem, and we'll give you Ritalin, And so they drugged these kids and actually created zombies, as you were saying. And it was just a big hoax to sell the product rather than to actually help the person. And I find a lot of people don't understand when I talk about this, but I have a relative who literally has become homeless. He was given a Ritalin as a kid. There were a lot of family problems at home, which were behavior and emotional problems that were not resolved, and they drugged him so he couldn't face those things and deal with them because he's drugged, which actually stops you from feeling love, and there wasn't any love in the family in the first place. So this person now is about 28 years old. He got kicked out of the service because they found out he'd been on Ritalin, and he's had job after job. He can't hold a job. He's become homeless at this point. He can't function in society, and it's because not totally the Ritalin. His history of growing up was not very conducive to a better life either, but he's just become so